Hi everyone. So today's webinar is going to be giving a bit of an overview of the digital mine of the future and how automation and digitalization is looking to take a big part of the success of new and existing mining operations. I'm going to focus on the selection of technology, the implementation process, and really try to button down on extracting real value from data. We are entering the modern era of mining, surrounded by smart machines and influenced by algorithms. It's interesting to note that 90% of all data in history has been generated in the last 2 years. We generate 2.5 quintillion bytes per day. But how should the mining industry capitalize on this? In my eyes, the goalposts are firmly shifting from how well we move dirt to how well we act on information to move dirt more efficiently and safely. One technology that mine sites have been adopting to move dirt more efficiently is autonomy. As we all know, in Australia in particular, we've seen significant investment in autonomous rail, drills, drones, and trucks. But this equipment autonomy is going hand in hand with process autonomy, machine learning, data analytics or AI, digital twin, Internet of Things. These sensors are gathering increased amounts of data which has been used to drive process optimization and predictive maintenance. However, there is a bit of a common theme and trend that mining companies are behind other verticals when it comes towards technology adoption. And look, there's a couple of possible reasons for this. One could be that all the risk taking occurs during the exploration period of development. Once in production, the companies do seem to be a little more risk adverse. However, I think the main reason is because mining company survival doesn't really depend on technology adoption in comparison to manufacturing or construction. Most mining companies will continue to turn a profit without a digitalization strategy. However, hopefully this presentation will help convince you all of some of the benefits. But first things first, is automation something that we should be worried about? Is this a threat to our day-to-day way of life and should it be challenged? Well, there's a recent study that came out of Oxford where they did a survey and they asked the question, is automation a threat to your job? Where 63% of people believe that their job would never be replaced by automation. And look, despite these beliefs, the study actually argued that almost half of today's jobs could be automated in the next 2 decades. And look, the reality is certain tasks will be augmented and many will be automated. The displacement may differ across sectors and regions, but it's inevitable that this will affect the career of young people joining the workforce. We need to consider current curriculums. Are we setting up the next generation with the required skill sets of modern day mining? But there are some misconceptions about autonomy, especially equipment autonomy. And one of the first big ones is that these are smart machines utilizing artificial intelligence. The fact is, they're not really that smart at all. Automated trucks and our drone, for example, follow the rules and principles that have been implemented by the people that code the software. Autonomy is replacing routine, mundane, repetitive tasks. These systems rely on a pre-established plan and there's very little room for on-the-fly decisions. The success of autonomy relies on a non-dynamic environment, and this will be the tech team's focus on ensuring conformance to plan. This extra free time that autonomy enables will be spent modeling and simulating different scenarios. A higher level of thinking will be required to plan and anticipate the week ahead. We have to remember that automation replaces tasks, not jobs. Tasks become redundant, not people. However, these misconceptions can't be ignored, and getting automation or digitalization right requires a strong focus on people strategies, transforming the business while maintaining an engaged, motivated, and appropriately skilled workforce. So, our company Airobotics, we've automated a system and a process as these tend to go hand in hand, the capturing and processing of data. We analyze the capabilities and gaps of data capture at operations, and there's a couple of gaps we're looking to plug. The fact that most data acquisition devices don't have the ability to swap out different sensors depending on the required data set. And these different data sensors, but in our case, spatial, thermal, and video, are often required to close that feedback loop of what, why, and how. By automating the process, a new level of value can be derived through frequency. However, we realize that the processing of this data due to the increased frequency has to also be automated in order for it to become sustainable. We understand that data collected by itself unanalyzed is essentially an expensive and fruitless exercise. Data must be transformed into meaning and insight, and through constant collaboration with our clients, we have built an impressive toolkit of insights and analysis. As mentioned, mining has traditionally lagged behind other industries when it comes to technology adoption, and we see this as an opportunity, which is why mining has been chosen as our primary vertical. We've been successfully delivering value across the world on mine sites for almost 2 years. However, I want to attempt to answer the why. Why invest significant time, resources, and energy into a very complex system? What specific pillars of value are we influencing with digitalization? And in assessing any digitalization strategy or project, it's important to consider these pillars if assessing if the project is even viable or will have any longevity. What problem are we solving? How are we increasing productivity, safety, or de-risking your project? And this is where a pragmatic approach must be taken towards understanding how the strategy affects the end goals. Any data collection strategy must be aligned with your business goals. Is the information we're gathering going to help answer the highest priority business questions? Now, this is not always an easy task, as often with any digitalization strategies, one of the main benefits is to understand or discover where the bottlenecks and challenges lie. A lot of it is you don't know what you don't know, so there must be an element of calculated risks. The challenge of proving ROI, especially on replacement value rather than value add, can often be a roadblock. Certain assumptions must be made on the value of the unknown. I invite you all to take a look at this diagram of digital transformation maturity to assess where you and your business sit. All stages provide value, but there's some obvious benefits to proactively solving production and safety issues before they become issues. In the initial stages of digital transformation, the strategy will revolve around search and monitor as issues occur. At the base level, we could describe this as the basic operation of a mill. Sensor goes off and the team goes in to fix the issue. As we progress, we start to get more holistic visibility of the mine as a system, discovering, look, are we limited by the mill capacity or the haulage fleet? And then we analyze the system to start to give critical business insights, doing the deep dive into the fleet management system data, identifying what is the baseline performance of, say, the excavator, how many buckets should there be per truck, and when this baseline goes off track, notifying the relevant stakeholders. The final stage is when we start correlating all these data sources. We start linking the crusher performance to the geological model or fragmentation analysis, and then automatically adjusting dispatch to make the necessary changes. Then the fleet management system is used to validate that these changes have had the desired effects. Over time, this knowledge database of problem versus solution is built up and then used to make recommendations based on prior behavior, reducing delays in response. Look, mining, it has a bit of an obsession with tracking metrics, and metrics on their or reporting on their own, in my humble opinion, are a bit of a waste of time. Understanding what has occurred in the past without looking to optimize the future isn't the most valuable exercise. The focus must always be on analysis and improvement. And look, a lot of what Airobotics does is capture these fundamental metrics, which could be interpreted as a very interesting statement. However, the capturing of these metrics is the fundamental first step before making the correlations to answer the why. So I want to take you through a quick practical example of extracting value from data. So in this case, we'll focus on spatial data and starting with a single XYZ point. So on its own, doesn't really offer too much value bar the location of your site. Once we start to zoom out, we get a surface, and look, we're starting to get important metrics on volumes, better angles, things like design compliance. But as I mentioned before, this is only telling you what has occurred. The next step is to perform further analytics. In this case, we're going to focus on the haul roads and safety compliance of safety parameters that have been set by our client, such as two-way crossfloor or super elevation, road width, and hydrology. So what pillar of value are we affecting here? Well, for the first two, safety compliance. Visibility using, and this is the keyword, objective data on compliance to safety specifications rather than relying on the subjective opinion of a supervisor, which can sometimes have bias. However, the hydrology insight is starting to lean towards the proactive phase, predicting where problems are going to be prior to the wet season, understanding where these problems are going to be before they become a problem, and putting in the fixes such as culverts to alleviate this problem. However, we can even start to take this a step further with more frequent data, and over time start to understand the rates of deterioration. In this case, how quickly windrows change. In this way, predictive maintenance can be done and scheduled. Now we're starting to affect both production and safety, as the maintenance of windrows can be transformed into need-based maintenance, where areas of the most need are focused on. And these same principles can be applied to haul road deterioration. Once we build this database knowledge, we can understand the rates of deterioration. And as I mentioned before, when we start to correlate this data with things such as road composition, weather, and usage, we can then create logic statements to understand the value of construction with certain materials, or how many extra graders will be required throughout different seasons, or as the haul road usage increases, do we need to assign extra graders? Haul roads are the vein of the operation, and as we move towards autonomous vehicles, we have to remember we're losing this feedback from the operators on the condition, which is why the importance of the analysis of, say, the fleet management system vibration alarms or any spatial condition analysis is becoming more important. To the saying, smooth roads, more loads. The same principle applies to production issues. How we see our system utilized on site is the spatial data or BCMs moved each shift, or the fleet management system data flags the issue, and then video analytics are used to investigate. We then correlate this data with the supervisor reports, maintenance, and geological properties to answer the why. This is where we identify the trends and correlations to understand the cause. Once we hypothesize the root cause of why the plan is not achieved, a plan can be put in place to fix it. And once this plan has been put in place, we go back to utilizing this highly frequent spatial data to see if the plan has worked. Uncovering the value comes out of correlation and causation. And this is why any automated data processing system, we must have open interfaces and standard APIs. Their systems must be interoperable, and as an industry, we must push OEMs to give us more access to this data, as bringing together all these sources of information is key to unlocking its true potential. So, hypothetically, we've now built the business case for this digitalization strategy or this automation project. How do we successfully implement? Well, for new technology to be successful, I'm a very firm believer in that the investment must not only be in the technology, but more importantly, the integration plan. The first step is always going to be communication, and communication should be basically at every step. The benefits, timetables, and goals of the program to the workforce. How do we make their job easier? Discovering their pain points and communicate how your business aims to empower the workforce to become the workforce of the future. The rollout schedule, when the changes are likely to happen so that they're not a surprise. And after it's all been communicated, KPIs must be set and measurable and monitored to ensure that the data has been used effectively. It's important to note that data shouldn't just be used to increase knowledge and understanding of our operation. This data must be acted on, and the success of any digitalization strategy should be based on how many decisions have been influenced. Involving your frontline teams in the development of the strategy is often key to the success. The frontline teams have the most visibility to the issues and challenges at operations. The earlier they are involved and understand the end goals, the more likely they'll be committed to the success of the project. And this will help also ensure that data pipelines are set up correctly so that the end users will have access. Continuing the theme of decision making, consider what change management can be put in place to shorten or streamline the decision making process, because otherwise the value can be reduced or lost. And finally, throughout this whole process, constant feedback and engagement from the frontline teams, ensuring they understand the technology and can see the benefits, and get their feedback to how it can be improved. As users of the system, these are the ones that can truly understand how these benefits can be acted on. So how can an organisation foster an environment where data is driving the decision-making process? For me, it 100% comes down to trust. And trust is one of the most important points of any data-driven strategy. If the teams don't trust the data, then why would the data influence their decision making? How often have we all heard, "No, don't worry about that, this information's incorrect," or "I know this spreadsheet says there's 10,000 cubes, but that stockpile is empty." No user would blindly trust a model without understanding the sources, age, and context of the data it's based on, which was why trust and communication go hand in hand. Look, technology driven disruption of the workforce is nothing new. Since civilization began, people have been using evolving mining techniques to access minerals in the earth. Innovations throughout history have revolutionized this extraction, from panning to the invention of dynamite to motorized mining tools and then the computer. All these technologies create disruption by displacing workers, creating new talent needs and process change. We have transitioned from the digital revolution to the data revolution, and automation and digitalization has the potential to radically reshape organizations and the people within them. Leaders today have the option to stay ahead of their competitors by adopting a rigorous approach for identifying and prioritizing these projects that increase safety and deliver value for their operations, customers, and shareholders. However, to do so sustainably and at scale requires linking the organization's automation and people strategies. Digitalization is a cultural issue as much as a technology issue. What good is the data if it's not acted on? And any viable digitalization strategy should seriously consider the human aspect of how it will impact their workers and employees. The hearts and minds of employees are only won when the proposed change is understood as seen beneficial and non-threatening to the employee's future. More often than not, the skill sets utilized in the task that becomes redundant can add value in optimizing the automation process. Intelligent technology really does demand ingenious humans to make data-driven decisions, and I think this quote sums it up all very nicely. The computer is incredibly fast, accurate, and stupid. Man is unbelievably slow, inaccurate, and brilliant. The marriage of the two is a challenge and an opportunity beyond imagination. Thanks very much. And look, if anyone wants to continue these conversations or learn anything else more further about our system, feel free to reach me at my details there. Always happy to have a chat.